Welcome, everybody, to the NBA show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. The NBA show is brought to you by Replenishing Care and Technologies. Make sure you check them out at rcand.com. I'm your co-host for the NBA show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, NBA beat writer, NFL beat writer. He writes about everything except for hockey. That's why we have the other Sam to write for hockey, Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great, Mike. How about you?
I'm doing great. 10 o'clock on a Sunday night. There's nothing else to do in quarantine, is there?
No, not really. What's up? Why not just talk some sports?
All right. So the NBA took kind of a long and winding road to get here. But yes, the 2020 playoffs have arrived. Tomorrow they'll start. And while there are plenty of valid concerns about restarting play amid the coronavirus pandemic, the league did manage to create a safe environment inside the bubble for participating teams as they finished out an unusual regular season schedule. The seeding game provided some much-needed entertainment for desperate hoops fans, including an incredibly tight race for the final playoff spot that was decided yesterday in the Western Conference. Now, for the team still hanging around the Walt Disney World Resort in Orlando, Florida, the intensity will jump to another level as the postseason play begins. The betting favorites have to be the Bucks, Clippers, and Lakers coming in, but the path to the NBA Finals will be filled with a lot of challenges. And the overall weirdness of this NBA bubble makes the first round of the playoffs, I think, even more difficult than what they normally would be, Sam.
And we've seen teams who haven't been entirely healthy yet. They haven't had a full-scale practice in a while. So for some of these teams that are considered more competitive, the Clippers specifically haven't had everyone healthy yet to really have a full practice at this point in time. We've seen teams like the Lakers who were dominant at the end of before we get suspended the season. They came in, they kind of struggled early on in the bubble. And we've seen guys like Dennis Schroeder and the Oklahoma City Thunder step away. Of course, he had a birth of his second son, I believe. So he stepped away for a little bit. Now he's coming back, but he missed basically most of the restart games. So there's a lot of concerns here about how teams are going to gel and if they're going to look like anything like they did before the season was suspended.
Yeah, and you've got guys like T.J. Warren for the Indiana Pacers who have kind of come out of nowhere and look like one of the best players in the NBA now.
Yeah, and he's going to be huge for them moving forward, but he did have some trouble. He missed, I think the last game they played, he missed. And, of course, against Miami, he got shut down, didn't have a great night. He was one of the 5 guys I chose to highlight in an article I posted about a week ago. I picked him out because he was playing so well. He was playing phenomenal at that point in time, probably one of the best 5 or 6 players in the bubble at that point. So you see guys like this, and it happened too. Like, okay, even look at Damian Lillard. He took his play to another level. Devin Booker's another one who they came into the bubble and just went on hot streaks. And you're going to see this happen where guys come into the bubble and they're either cold or hot. And you've seen it happen now with a number of stars who just come in and look entirely different.
You think maybe that's because those guys are a little shy and don't like big crowds?
Yeah, so now they're coming out and performing so well in front of the electronic fans.
Yeah, the electronic fans is stupid, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
But it's better than cardboard cutouts, maybe. So let's go ahead, and we'll start off in the East. We're the number 1 seed, the Milwaukee Bucks, who've been, I think it's safe to say, the best team in the East all season, even though the season's lasted about a year now. We'll take on the number 8 seed, the Orlando Magic. And what's your take on this series, and who wins it, Sam?
Yeah, this series really, I'm going to give you an honest opinion. The Orlando Magic and the Brooklyn Nets have no real reason to be in the NBA playoffs at this point. I know they're there. I don't want it to mean anything that those guys have accomplished throughout the season, but they have no reason to be there right now, especially when you got it seems like the Bucks facing the Magic. This is a gimme series. It should go for only 4 or 5 games. Maybe Orlando gets one. I don't know if that would even happen, though. I think the Bucks should win this one easily.
Yeah, I think this is a 4-game sweep. I think Giannis, who's going to guard him for Orlando? I just don't see anybody here that can do this. I expect Orlando coach Steve Clifford to throw Aaron Gordon at the Greek Freak, and I think the Greek Freak posts ridiculous numbers. And I think the big number you got to remember here is Brook Lopez sat during the Bucks seeding games, and Milwaukee had a net rating of minus 11.2. When he played, that number jumped to plus 8.9. And it's easy to place the spotlight on Giannis and Chris Middleton. They're really good players, but I don't think you could really forget the impact about Brook Lopez, particularly on the defensive end.
Yeah, he's one of the best rim protectors in the league. And before the suspension, the Bucks had one of the best defenses in the NBA. And, of course, he was one of the keys to it, obviously Giannis as well. but they had the league leading defensive efficiency of 101.6. That was before we went to the bubble. They didn't perform as well, of course, because they didn't have Brook Lopez, but I think he'll be a huge key for them. I think he'll shut down Nikola Vucevic, and I think Giannis Antetokounmpo and his partner Chris Middleton will actually run free. I don't think there's anyone who's going to be able to stop either of them, honestly. Maybe even Giannis. Maybe if he doesn't play well a game, it really won't matter. I think Chris Middleton will be able to perform well. I don't see anyone who matches up against either of them on the Orlando Magic.
All right, that brings us to the second series. The number 2 seed, the Toronto Raptors, will take on the Brooklyn Nets, who you said had no chance. I agree with you. And I think the big question here is, what will Pascal Siakam do in his first playoff series as a top offensive threat? And I think the Nets are an ideal matchup for that, Sam, because they don't have a great wing-stopping option.
Yeah, this is an ideal testing ground, I think, for the Toronto Raptors, because they've struggled a little bit in the bubble. They have been good. Their defense is always high. They have great team chemistry. The one issue they have usually is turnovers, and they're a little bit sloppy. Now, I think they'll still work in their favor, but again, they need a little bit more time, I think, to get in full playoff mode. And playing a team like the Brooklyn Nets, who basically have, it's Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, and kind of just everyone else at this point. There's really not anyone there. You don't have Kyrie Irving. You don't have KD. So this is really just the backups kind of playing for them. I think Toronto will win this in 4 or 5 games. I'll say probably 5. I think Brooklyn and Priscilla still 1. But I think Toronto's a real playoff threat this year. I think Pascal Siakam will stick up to the plate.
Toronto wins this series in 3. That's how big a mismatch I think this is. I think Toronto had the best defensive rating inside the bubble. Their rating was 102.7. Brooklyn has played through a lot of injuries. They've played well despite those injuries. But I think the problem here is the Nets don't possess a ton of strong initiators on offense. And I think that's a major issue when you face a team with plus defenders at almost every position like the Raptors.
Well, yeah, and Karis LeVert is really the only guy on the Nets that I'm worried about, I would fear. He's really the only initiator for that offense. He's the only guy who can really make his own shot. Even guys like Joe Harris, they're more spot three-pointers. Guys like Jared Allen, he's not going to step outside. So you really have one player on the Brooklyn Nets. When you look at the Toronto Raptors, guys like Fred VanVleet, he's been an energizer bunny for them during the bubble games. He was really terrific for them. Kyle Lowry will always be able to make some plays. You got OG Anunoby, who's kind of underrated at this point. And Pascal Siakam, who's performing at a really good level, probably going to be an All-NBA player next year. And you got Marc Gasol coming back. He gives you a little more versatility at the center position. So I think there's no way for Brooklyn to match up well against the Toronto Raptors.
All right, next up, we got the number 3 seed, the Boston Celtics, against the number 6 seed, the Philadelphia 76ers. And from where I come is way back in time in the 70s and 80s. This was one of the best rivalries in the NBA. We don't have Bird against Dr. J or Moses Malone or Kevin McHale there, but we do have Joel Embiid. Now, the 76ers know Ben Simmons is unlikely to return. I think when you look at that, I think Gordon Hayward has been terrific in Orlando, and he's been averaging 5 free throw attempts per game, nearly doubling his output prior to the suspension of play. And I think if he continues to attack with confidence, I really think Boston becomes a huge threat in the East. And I think Boston takes the Sixers out in 5, Sam.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. When you take Ben Simmons out of the game, I don't think there's any way the 76ers can compete against any of the top 3 teams. That includes Toronto and Boston in the East. Now, the one advantage the 76ers do have, and this is what they're going to have to do, throw Joel Embiid in the post against Daniel Theis and just let him work. Because there's a huge size advantage there for Joel Embiid. He's arguably the best big center in the NBA right now. So you have to run the offense through him. I think you have to play with the post-up style game. And nothing makes me more infuriated than watching Brett Brown put Joel Embiid out by the three-point line. That's just not the right way to win this offense if you're the 76ers. You need to put him down there low. You need to work Al Horford down low too as well. You need to put those guys down there and let them beat up a smaller Boston lineup. Because the Celtics have offensive playmakers. They got Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. And like you said, Gordon Hayward, who's been improving much more over the past year. You can't keep pace with those guys unless you're scoring on almost every possession. You're the 76ers. You need to go inside and have an efficient offensive performance.
All right, next up, the final series in the East. And I think the best matchup in the East is number 4 seed, the Indiana Pacers, against the number 5 seed, the Miami Heat, Sam.
Yeah, and this is going to be a fun one. Of course, the headlines going in is going to be Jimmy Butler versus TJ Ward. We saw what happened last time. TJ Warren had a bad performance. Jimmy Butler didn't really put up a lot of numbers, but he hasn't really done that all year in Miami. He's kind of been a little bit of everything. He's been a terrific defender for them. He's been a bit of a facilitator. He doesn't have to score a lot of points for the Miami Heat to go out there and win games. Now, Heat didn't finish the bubble with a very strong record. They didn't play. They played a lot of competitive teams. They didn't really perform that well, though, in my opinion. But they just have so many guys. Look at Kendrick Nunn, Duncan Robinson's automatic from 3. Derek Jones Jr. He's hurt. I don't know if he'll play or not, but I think if he does, it's a huge boost for them. Tyler Hero and Gordon Dragic on the bench. Bam Adebayo at center. I think there's too many pieces on Miami for Indiana to actually stop them without Domantas Sabonis, who isn't going to be playing. So I think this can go to Miami Heat. I think it could go 6 games. I think it really could take that long for Miami to come out there and beat the Indiana Pacers.
All right. I think what's overlooked here is Miami is often viewed as kind of a hard-nosed, grinded-out team, but I don't think you can dismiss the firepower here. The Heat shot 38% from three-point range this season, second in the league, only behind the Utah Jazz. And I think the big key here for Indiana is finding the shooters on the perimeter, especially Duncan Robinson, who's capable of going on his own personal 6-0 run at any moment. And then the biggest key for the Pacers is, do we get the T.J. Warren of the first 6 or so games, 5 or 6 games in the bubble, or do we get what we got when they played the Heat? And he averaged 31 points per game while shooting 57.8% from the field inside the bubble. However, in the 3 games against the Heat, he's averaged just 10 points, 35.5% shooting, including a 5 for 14 outing a week ago. And I think when you look at this, I think T.J. Warren's got to play huge. I'm a Pacers fan, but I agree with you. I think the Heat win this. I'm actually going to take the Heat in 5. So that's about the only – I mean, I think these 4 series, I think that to me, there's no doubt who the 4 best teams in the East are going into the Eastern Conference playoffs, Sam.
No, I agree. The East is kind of boring this year. It's pretty cut and dry. The best series, like you said, is the Miami Heat versus the Indiana Pacers. You could see Victor Oladipo. If he comes back to life and he stays healthy, I think he could be a big game changer for Indiana. But I'm still taking Miami. I think Miami just has too much depth for Indiana to compete with them.
Yeah, if you get Oladipo at 100% and T.J. Warren can just average 18 to 20 points a game, I think that changes, and all of a sudden this is a 6 or 7 game series that the Pacers can win. But right now, just from what we've seen so far in the bubble, I like the Heat. I just don't know that the Pacers can defend them on the perimeter. All right, let's go to the Western Conference, which is supposed to be a 2-team race between the Lakers and Clippers. But Damian Lillard isn't just on a hot streak. He's basically, I mean, he is on fire. You probably don't remember the old NBA game that you play at the arcade where if you hit 3 shots in a row, you're on fire and, you know, everything he throws up goes in. That's kind of what Lillard has been. His number across the 8 seeding games was 37.6 points, 9.6, 4.3 rebounds. He shot almost 50% from the field, 44% from the three-point line. And when you look at this, a lot of people are saying this is ripe for an upset. I'm not one of them. I think the Lakers win this in 5 or 6 games. And I think the problem here, the Trailblazers just aren't an elite defense. And I think they're going to have a hard time keeping the Lakers from getting clean looks.
Yeah, they just don't have a defensive ability. They've never shown defensive capability of stopping anyone. So I don't think they're going to be able to contain the Lakers. I think they will be over in 5 or 6 games. I think people who are betting on the Portland Trailblazers are about to lose a lot of money. This is not going to be an upset. Now, Lillard, like you said, 37.6 points per game. He's been phenomenal. He's been efficient too. I consider about him, he's playing about 42 minutes per game. And he's doing that the entire bubble. At some point, even though he had all those months off, at some point, playing 42 minutes a game is going to catch up to you. And if you end up playing 5, 6, maybe even 7 games in the first round, you're not going to be able to play 42 minutes every game and perform at a high level night in and night out. It just won't happen. So I think Damian Lillard, he's going to be great at the start of the series, but I think by the end of the series, you might see him a little bit worn out. And frankly, the Los Angeles Lakers have no one to match up against Lillard. They don't have a guard who can cover him. But on the other end, the Portland Trailblazers have no one to match Anthony Davis and no one to match LeBron James. So I think the Lakers are just have too much star power. I don't think the Portland Trailblazers can maintain their hot offensive hand right now. I think the Lakers are going to end up winning the series.
All right, the other Los Angeles team, or the Los Angeles team, according to who you talk to, the number 2 seed, the Los Angeles Clippers, will battle the number 7 seed, the Dallas Mavericks. What's your take here, Sam? Any shot at a Maverick upset?
I don't see it happening. This game, this is why I like the West so much though right now. Is you look at a team like the Dallas Mavericks, they could possibly play spoilers. There are teams out there that I actually enjoy watching who have low seeds in the West. You got Luka Doncic, who in my mind is already going to be a top 10 player in the NBA. He's phenomenal night in and night out. He's one of the best players in the bubble. I think he's a top 5 player in the bubble, in my opinion. So you got these guys who are out there. It's going to be a close series. I think you could see a lot of close games. I think it'll be over in 6. I think the Clippers will take it just because they have so much depth. I mean, they've got maybe 10 or 11 guys on that roster who are legitimate players who could start on any given team. So I think the Clippers will take this game, will take the series. But at the same point, I wouldn't count Dallas out. I think Dallas will have some splash moments. They're just too young right now. Unless Rick Carlisle does something, they're just not prepared to win the series.
Yeah, I think when you look offensively, I don't think you'll find a better series because I think this series could produce games where both teams are anywhere from 115 to 130 points. At 21 years old, as you say, Luka Doncic is a legitimate superstar. He's ready to take center stage. But unfortunately, the Clippers are designed to shut him down. You got Patrick Beverley, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. I don't see much chance here. I think that the Mavs could win maybe a game or two, but I think the Clippers take this series relatively easy, 4-1 or 4-2. Next up, the Denver Nuggets, the number 3 seed, will battle the Utah Jazz, the number 6 seed. And I think this is a series, Sam, that could come down to just being basically a big man battle from the 80s where you got Rudy Gobert against Nikolai Jokic.
Yeah, it's really going to come down to which group of big men performs the best. Because you look at Denver, look what they have size-wise. I mean, they got Nikola Jokic, they got Paul Millsap. Michael Porter Jr. has been a revelation in the bubble. He's averaging 22 points per game while shooting about 42% from 3. He's been phenomenal. And of course, you got Mason Plumlee coming off the bench. You got Bol again. So you got a lot of size in Denver. Unfortunately, the size is a bad matchup when you're playing against Rudy Gobert. He's one of the best shot blockers in the league. And not even that. He's one of the best shot alterers in the league. You can't get in the paint and not have him change the way you're trying to shoot the ball. So I think the Jazz have a good strength inside. I think they're going to have a little bit of advantage. We saw Jokic lost some weight before the bubble, so he's not going to be able to bang with Rudy Gobert like he normally would. I just don't think the Jazz have enough offensively to compete with Denver. I think Denver will just outscore them.
Well, I think the big issue here is Michael Porter. And we talked about T.J. Warren already, and I think maintaining that level of production throughout the playoffs is unrealistic considering the lack of experience. But if Porter does realize it and plays that way, it could be a game changer. I'm just going to assume that he's not ready for this yet, and I'm going to take Denver in 6, Sam.
Yeah, I'll take Denver as well. I think Denver's got the most depth at this point. I think Denver just has the size, and they got the playmakers right now. I mean, you got someone like Jokic, who's going to be phenomenal no matter what. He gets only scored 12 points, but he'll have 12 assists too, so it doesn't really matter how you stop him. He's going to get his.
Number 4, the Houston Rockets against number 5, the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think the huge question here is when will Russell Westbrook take the court?
Yeah, we've already heard he's out for game 1, so we know they're at least down 1 game without him. He could be more, but of course the Houston Rockets are hoping it's just the 1. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder have a really good chance at winning this. I think this is a potential 7-game series. Now, it's either going to be, in my opinion, we're going to go all 7 or we're just going to get 4. It's going to be one of the two. I don't think there's anywhere in between. The Thunder have a huge advantage in Steven Adams and Danilo Gallinari. They have size. The Rockets are the smallest team in terms of how they play the court. The PJ Tucker's their center. I mean, they really don't have anyone since they got rid of Clint Capella. They don't have anyone inside. I think the Thunder have to change a little bit what they're playing. They have to move the ball inside a little bit more. They usually play a little more outside, a little more mid-range. I think they need to focus on Steven Adams. I think Chris Paul's the perfect man. He doesn't have to shoot 20 shots a game. He'll focus on getting everyone the open. He'll focus on getting the open players the ball. He'll move it around. I think the Thunder can beat the Rockets, but there's always James Harden. I mean, he goes off for 50 some nights. So I think when you have those explosions from Harden, it's almost impossible to beat the Rockets. But otherwise, I think OKC has a good advantage here.
Yeah, I kind of like OKC a little bit, but I'm going to go with Houston and James Harden here. I think they win this in 7. I think this is the best series of these weird playoffs. The Thunder's lineup, I mean, they're consistent. They have one of the best net ratings, I think, this year. They're a good team. And I think the Rockets would be particularly vulnerable against that group if Westbrook is unable to play until late in the series. So I think a lot of this hinges on Westbrook. I'm going to go with the Thunder in 7, Sam. I changed my mind.
Yeah, I'm saying stick with the Thunder. I'm like, go with the guy. I think the Thunder really have a good chance to win this one. And personally, I'm rooting for it. I think people were tolling Chris Paul's death bell way too soon last season. He's back in all-star, all-NBA form. I'm glad to see the way he's performing. I think him, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and Dennis Schroeder, that's a dominant group of guards. I don't think the Houston Rockets will be able to match them up the entire series. I'm giving it to OKC.
All right, Sam. So give me this. What's your predicted NBA Finals? We will be back before the second round, and we can change it then too. But what's your prediction for who will be in the NBA Finals at the end of this?
I think people would assume the Bucks would come out of the East just because Giannis is there. I don't think the Bucks are ready. I don't think Giannis is ready. I don't think that's a team that is prepared to go to the NBA Finals. I think I don't want to pick Boston, but I think I'm going to have to pick Boston just because I think they have so many weapons offensively. I think the biggest concern for them is size. Like I said, in the interior. I am going to go with Boston, though. I don't want them to, but I think it's going to be a Boston versus Lakers. Boston Lakers Finals. Let's go Boston versus the Lakers. Let's go back a little bit. Let's reignite the rivalry. I think LeBron gets there. I think he plays Jason Tatum.
If we could bring back Magic and Larry Bird for it, I'm all for it. I think this. I'm going to go a little weirder. I'm going to go to Boston Celtics against the Denver Nuggets.
Really? That's a good one.
So, and I'm going to go with the Denver Nuggets to win the NBA World Championship.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. All right, Mike. I like
it. Who was the coach that took the Nuggets to the Western Conference Finals in the mid-'80s?
Ooh. Don't do this to me, Mike. What is – I got to figure this out.
We're young kids, so we're trying to teach you some stuff while we do the show.
Yeah, doing it live. I'm trying to figure it out. Let me see. Was it Doug Moe? Was that who it is?
Yes, it was, since you looked it up.
Yeah.
I mean, we watched you look it up.
Oh, yeah, you saw my eyes go down.
Name 3 players off the team.
Oh, that was –
without moving your eyes. Don't move your eyes, Sam. Look up at the sky. Look up at the sky or close your eyes, Sam.
All right. Well, the one guy who had to be on that team was Alex English.
Yes.
He had to be there.
What number did Alex English wear?
I'm not going to get that one.
Number 2. Go ahead. Continue.
Ah, jeez. Okay. Who was on Denver at that time? Yeah, I'm not going to get that, Mike.
Oh, man, come on. You got to get Fat Lever.
Oh, no.
You got to get Fat Lever. How can you not get Fat Lever?
All right, I know that one. I know that one. Who else was on that team? Let me look.
Why are you looking? You should just know. It's why you're doing the NBA show, Sam.
Listen, I'm really good with the modern stuff, like 2000s and beyond. I'm really good at. I'm still trying to learn about the past a little bit. I should have got Fat Lever. You're right. I should have really got that one.
Fat Lever was a stud back in the day. Was Kiki Vandeweghe on that team?
I don't think so.
Can't remember if he was or not. And I think it was 85. Was it 85 when they made the Western Conference Finals, or was it 86?
It was actually it was 84-85 season.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Because they got beat, I think, 4-0 or 4-1. But that was Doug Moe when they would shoot the ball like every 3 seconds. I mean, as soon as they got past midcourt, they were shooting the ball. And they played, I think, at the time, I don't know if it still is or not, the highest scoring game in NBA history against, I think they're like 186-184 against the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be fun to watch. But I mean, you gotta be jacking up shots left and right to get to that score.
Well, maybe we'll play it on the Facebook channel for you at some point because I've got the video of the game.
Yeah, I'll watch that one. I'll watch it.
The thing that's interesting about that is the Pistons were a team that scored a lot of points, but when they became a team that won, they were more of a defensive team.
Hey, had to go bad boy Pistons. You had to stop Bill Embiid in the middle. And even that guys like Isaiah Thomas, not that you don't think of Isaiah Thomas as being the tough guy on that team, but he's willing to go out there and take some shots. You had a bunch of guys who were willing to just be fighters.
Yeah, and I think the rest of that team, the starters, I can't remember if Danny Shays or Wayne Cooper was the starter. You had Alex English. You had T.R. Dunn, Mike Evans, Dan Issel. Dan Issel, who was from the Kentucky Colonels and played for the Kentucky Wildcats Colonels in the ABA. Calvin Nett, who our forward Lucas was. Danny Shea, Elston Turner, I think, on that team from Ole Miss. But actually, when I sit here and think about who was on the team, Doug Moe did a great job to get them to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the team now. Like I know 4 of those guys on that team, but yeah, to get that far, I mean, you beat San Antonio, you beat Utah, and then you lost to the Lakers. That's pretty good for 84-85.
Yeah, but the Lakers beat the hell out of everybody when they got to the Western Conference Finals, except for in 1986. Who beat them in 1986, Sam?
Oh, Houston. Houston had to be the
Sam.
team in there. Houston had.
Yes. On the Wild Samson shot in Game 5. That was one of my favorite games. I remember that game because I had to go to school the next day. I was in like 11th grade, and I fell asleep in the middle of the third quarter, and I woke up right before Samson hit the shot.
Houston was so good there in time. Houston gets forgotten about too much.
Oh, if you look at Houston, the 1981 Rockets, I think they had a 500 record or maybe even below. They were like 40-42 or 41-41. They upset the Lakers because the first round series used to be best out of 3. And they beat, I think what it was is they won game 1 at the Forum. They got beaten game 2 at Houston. And they came back and won the third and deciding game against the Lakers. I think Magic dribbled the clock out or something, didn't even get a shot off. The Rockets upset them, and they played in the Western Conference Final against, I think, the Sacramento Kings and the Kansas City Kings is who it was at the time. And I think the Kings were right around 500 also. And then they get the win there, and then they go to Boston and get beaten 6. And then in 1986, they pull the upset. They pull the upset of the Lakers and go to the finals and push maybe the greatest NBA team of all time in the 86 Celtics to a 6-game finals.
Yeah, people talk about the Rockets as a more modern team because they've won. They've made the playoffs in the last 8 or 9 years. But I mean, really, look at them in the 80s. When the Rockets were arguably at their best.
Yeah, you look 1981. I think people forget that Moses Malone was the center on that team because most people think, he was just a Philadelphia 76er. But in 1981, you had Moses Malone, you had Calvin Murphy. I mean, it was a really good basketball team that just gelled at the right time at the end of the season.
Yeah, and of course, everyone knows.
That's so long ago that Kansas City doesn't even have an NBA team now, Sam. I feel old.
Hey, well, neither does Seattle. Seattle's more recent. They don't have one either.
Oh, and the Supersonics were badass. In the 80s, the Supersonics were good. Jack Sikma, downtown Freddie Brown, he was more late 70s, early 80s. Dennis Johnson, people forget. Dennis Johnson was a clutch defender in 78, 79 to take Seattle to the NBA Finals. They won it in 78 in Game 7. Or no, wait, did they win it in 78 or win it in 79? I think Seattle won it in 79 and 5. They lost Game 7 at home in the Kingdom to the Washington Bullets in 78. I think.
Yeah, look at it right now. Yeah, they won in the 78-79 season.
Yeah, so 79, they won that game. I think they won that 4-1. They won it in Landover, Maryland, Game 5. And the year before the Game 7, the Bullets beat the Supersonics in Seattle. And I'm not Googling a damn thing, Sam.
Hey, you got that memory.
It's all in my computer. My computer's up here, Sam. See, you young kids just Google everything. I used to have to think about stuff. My only problem is I can only remember old stuff in my computer. I can't remember new stuff.
I remember DJ mostly from his time for like Boston as usual. I hear about because they Boston Celtics, they kind of capture everyone, but he was really good with the Suns too, even after he left Seattle.
Who was that?
Dennis Johnson.
No, Dennis Johnson was a Celtic. He was a Supersonic before that. I don't think he played for the Spurs, did he?
No, the Suns. He was with the Suns a little bit, I'm sure. I do remember that. I do know he's with the Suns.
Positive? You better Google it.
I can Google it if you want me to. I am positive he was with the Suns at one point.
I don't think he was a Sun. My favorite son was Walter the Greyhound Davis from North Carolina. Have you ever heard of him, Walter Davis? Come on, you have to have heard of him. He was a bad dude. If he didn't have that coke problem, he'd have been a legend.
That's an issue. The NBA had that coke era, and there was a lot of guys who were really
Michael
good.
Ray Richardson.
Yeah. No, they had a whole lot of guys who were really just dominant at that time. It's so sad. David Thompson was another guy who was so good.
Oh, David Thompson was a bad dude. I mean, nothing like David Thompson against Dr. J in a slam dunk contest.
No. I mean, David Thompson was a guy. Michael Jordan even acknowledges David Thompson as being a guy he kind of modeled a little bit of his game after.
Yeah, I mean, David Thompson was a bad dude. Ask UCLA. Because he took down Bill Walton's senior year, I believe. What are you Googling, Sam? I see your eyes reading stuff.
I'm moving. I'm looking at David Thompson's file right now. I was looking to see how many dominant years he had before he kind of went to decline.
Well, most of his dominant years, if I remember right, were in the ABA.
Yeah. Well, he started in the ABA, and it looks like he moved to the NBA pretty soon after. But
well, he did
rookie
because
season.
the Nuggets were one of the 5 or 6 franchises that went from the ABA to the NBA.
Yeah, it was like the Nuggets and Spurs. I know were 2 of them.
Nuggets, Spurs, Pacers, Nets, because the Nets actually were the New York Nets, and then they became the New Jersey Nets. Yeah. That was 4 of them there. You said Spurs, right?
Yeah, Spurs.
I can't even remember who the hell else it was.
Maybe was it Hawks? Was Hawks one of them?
I don't think so. That's what I was thinking, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I just know I like to watch the ABA. I like to watch the USFL still too.
Yeah, back in the good old days.
Yeah, when Donald Trump thought he might own an NFL team someday, but he pissed too many people off. All right, Sam, what's our topic on the NFL show tomorrow at 1:00?
Have we done a state of the franchise in the Cleveland Browns yet?
Well, we can tomorrow.
Yeah, you want to do Cleveland tomorrow? Let's
Maybe
take care of it.
Kelly wants to come on with us. She's our Cleveland Brown writer.
All right. I'm down for it.
Nothing better than to crush a Cleveland Browns fans' hopes when they have wild dreams that this is going to be 1964 again.
Nah, it'd be phenomenal.
All right. Tell everybody where they can find you, Sam.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook with Sam_Teets33. I'm constantly posting new NFL or NBA stuff there all the time, so feel free to go check that out.
All right, guys, you can follow me at Grueling Truth on Twitter. Make sure you go check out the Facebook page, like that, and check out Replenishing Care and Technologies, the PEMF machine. If you're an athlete that needs to heal or you're just old like me and want to feel better, check out the PEMF machine. You can go to rcand.com. Why are you laughing, Sam?
I'm not laughing. I'm just smiling. You know, it was when we had it just on the phones. We didn't have the cameras. We didn't have to deal with any of this stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know you were this happy of an individual, Sam. And there was somebody that put on there that you look like an animated character.
Really?
Yeah. They put it on the NFL show, which we want to thank everybody. I think is up to 21,000 listens now, but it's because we talked about the Cincinnati Bengals, who are obviously the most popular team because out of all the state of the franchises, 21,000 people listen to that one. I think second place was 20,000.
Yeah, you're up there. Hey, like you said, you're going to win the Super Bowl next 10 years in a row, right?
I know, and people know that. That's why they're going to listen about it. They're listening to us about it. But
it's all the bandwagon fans.
We'll have to get a Survive in Advance with Steve Risley on coming up maybe tomorrow night or Tuesday night if you want also.
Yeah, I'm in.
All right, guys. So make sure if you want to hear our podcast, you can find us on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. And make sure you check me and Sam out tomorrow at 1:00 Eastern Time live on the NFL show where we will do a Cleveland Browns State of the Franchise. So for now, for Sam Teets, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.